They only have kind of a surface level idea of what the colors and shapes and sizes are. Then the next step, once they see the price and once they see kind of the colors and they're okay with it, the next step is to then go into the showroom and show them in person what that looks like.
Welcome to the Landscape Cafe, brought to you with support from Fort Myers Garden Service, maintaining and protecting business and residential landscapes. Visit fortmyersgardenservice.com or call 239-990-7494.
All right, awesome, guys. Today I have Jesus, the owner of Southwest Pavers, on the podcast. And today we're going to see a little bit of his world. We're going to talk to him about some of the projects that he's done, some of the things that he's passionate about, maybe some of the bottleneck things that have happened from the hurricane, and just get a good insight on his business. He runs a family business as well as us, and he's actually one of our subcontractors that we use for the hardscapes. Pure landscaping, we don't really do any hardscape stuff in-house. All of that is subcontracted through our trusted subs. And our tagline, the motto is we're serving families. And so, you know, the ones that we work for, the ones that work with us, and again, his business is a family-owned business. He's got his brother working in the business. He may even have some more people that I don't know about. I've definitely met both of them on job sites. And with all that, Jesus with Southwest Pavers, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Got a lot going on today, as always, but I'm happy to carve out some time and talk with you about some pavers. If you would, I'd like to kick off. What are some of your favorite projects or most interesting projects that you've done so far? What do they entail? How did you meet that customer, and how did they go?
I think the one that kind of sticks out to me, I think we did it back around the end of 2019, I believe. So it was right before COVID. We were doing a lot. We were still in BNI, so we were doing a lot of just advertising, networking, and one of our advertisers that you know, Kevin, he recommended us to somebody just on Facebook. Someone was looking for someone to do pavers, and it turned out that person was a screening company. Nothing came out of that beyond this job. I never really made much contact with them beyond they have a customer that needs some paver work. And so we got in touch with them. And so what it was is he had a pool. It's a big house in Golden Gate, and he had a big pool that he was going to get remodeled, doing everything. So we were, you know, doing the remodel pavers, and then he had this big idea about making his backyard. He has a huge backyard and just wanted it to be this like large space for entertainment, and so he designed it himself. How he wanted these these huge patios, walkways going up to it, fire pit, benches made out of the retaining wall blocks. He had this big canopy that we built, columns with the blocks on top of the big patio pavers, and he set the canopy in those columns. It's just a big, you know, the biggest job we had done to that point. And it just, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to design it with him and get all the colors and the paver selection and the block, the fire pit, the shape of the fire pit was, and then, you know, it was just the most intricate job that we had done to that point, and it just sticks out a lot.
That is awesome. I love those jobs. I have a few stories of those clients who just want to go all out like that. So let's paint a picture for anybody listening. How many approximately square footage was that space that you did for them?
I think that one probably reached 5,000 square feet.
Wow. So that was a big area.
Yeah. Well, the pool, he had a relatively large pool deck, and then he had that extended too. So
right.
That added on a huge portion, and then right out of the screen cage door, it was a walkway that then it turned into a fork, and it had two walkways leading off of that. one to each of the patios that we built. Large patios. He clearly wanted to be able to host a lot of parties. He's a DJ. That's that thing. So I'm sure he threw a lot of parties out there, and I mean, he has a huge space now for that.
That is awesome. And so did he have any design expertise, or was he, your average homeowner that was like, hey, Pinterest and drew it up on paper for you guys? How did that work?
Yeah. Basically, he had this vision. He knew what he wanted out of the space that he had. And like I said, being in a large acreage, piece of land, he had the space to do it. But he kind of just asked for our suggestions. He was in touch with all the contractors. He had a grader come out there in the back before he got started and bring in a bunch of fill. So he had it prepped for us as far as the filling. And then we just came in with the design that we had talked about. The colors. He asked us about the colors, what would work well. He had an idea of what he wanted, but once conversations got rolling and we started to discuss the different shape sizes and colors, the picture started to form, and we started executing once we got the material in.
That is awesome. So when it comes to, because I learned this when you did the pavers at our house, there's many different shapes, sizes, and also thickness. And I was like mind blown. I'm like, oh my gosh. I thought that pavers were super basic, just cut and dry. But no, I mean, there's a lot of different options to select from. When you're doing a patio that big versus maybe a driveway, how do you select the size and the thickness for the right application?
Well, so the thickness is typically always going to be the 2-inch, the 60 millimeters. That's just
okay.
It's going to be thick enough for driveway purposes, patios, pretty much anything. Most pool decks. The only time that we would 30 millimeter is when we're doing an overlay on top of concrete, a remodel pool deck, or when the space allow for the 60s. But we would never do it on the driveway because those are too thin for, driving over them. So
okay, gotcha.
The default's going to be the 60 millimeters. Now, as far as the pavers, that really depends on the conversation that we have with the customers. So some of them will tell us that they want this modern kind of look. And so that then tells us which sizes to discuss. So if they want more modern kind of square bezel edge to the paver, then we've got sizes like the 4x8 that we did at your place. There's our favorite would be the mega smooth, very sharp edges at the end, squared off edges. But the sizes, there's 3 sizes: a 6x9, a 9x9, and a 9x12. And if you just think about it for a second, those are all divisible of each other, which means that whenever the edge of the patio, pool deck, whatever, wherever that edge is, if at the end of our layout, there's a small gap still, we got to fill in that gap. But instead of putting in a tiny little sliver of paver, which one takes up a long time to do because the smaller it is, the bigger the range of mistakes to happen. And then 2, which is good. So because those pavers are divisible of each other, we can swap out that smaller piece. Let's say it's a 6x9, replace it with a 9x9 or the 9x12. And now you've got a bigger piece that you can then just cut off at the end. You eliminate that small sliver. So we discussed that with the homeowner. Sometimes that gets them to do that size, and it also helps us out because then we can install it, and because they're bigger pieces, we go along a lot faster. But other times, that like strict paver brick look, so those 4x8s, and if there's a small cut, that's what it is. That's the look they're looking for. So there's a lot of things that we go over in the conversations that we have, and they'll tell us too. A lot of people know what they're looking for. They just wanna. It's up to us to then get them in the direction that they do eventually want to get to. So we have those conversations. We discuss the thickness, we discuss the shape, why, and then a lot of people want old school look, and we get them that, and it is what it is. But we always talk to them. It's that conversation that gets us to deciding what the paver is, and then there's the color. Then they have to decide on whether they want just one color. This one in particular, the customer that we discussed, he chose to have a different colored border all the way around the edge, the soldier course. And that gives it, a different look. It's a distinct look where you have one of, in the layout, the pavers have 3 different colors, sometimes 2. Usually it's 3. And then we picked out one of those 3 colors to use as a solid border throughout the whole thing. And it turned out to look really good. And in the pool deck, he used the same color for the coping. So it's, it's all contrasting with each other, but it all complements very well.
That's pretty awesome. That is, there's so much more that goes into it than I think the average person thinks about when they think about just pavers.
Yeah,
really cool.
We every time we go out, we send out an estimate. We also send them a link to the website because we can discuss it, in person, and they can. Yeah, there's a couple of options, and then we send them the link, and they see, the very many options that there are. It gets them to kind of narrow it down as they see it online, and the pictures don't do it justice. So they only have kind of a surface level idea of what the colors and shapes and sizes are. Then the next step, once they see the price and once they see kind of the colors and they're okay with it, the next step is to then go into the showroom and show them in person what that looks like. In person, the colors are different pictures than what they are in person. So I always have them pick it out. They see it in person. They see it laid out. If I have driveway examples, I'll say down the street from where you live, because that's usually how it is we do a lot of work in the same communities over and over. And so people can just drive down the street and see one of our driveways most of the time and get an idea of what they would be getting.
That is awesome. I love when I can just send a customer right down the street and say,
yeah,
hey, look what your neighbors up the road did, and they can see the quality craftsmanship that we do. And especially with pavers, I mean, that is honestly that would you consider that, is that masonry work? Would you consider it masonry work? Pavers?
I think
is that a little different?
Not sure. I guess hardscape would just be the best way to say it. I think masonry
hardscape
is building on top of. I'm not sure.
Okay. So let's say skilled hardscape is what I like to use the word masonry, because I feel like it's very, it encompasses the skill and the craft that you guys have. I mean, you guys have some skilled hardscape guys on your team, and even just like the math, where this is divisible by this and this is divisible by this. I mean, you guys got to know that, because when you're building, I mean, you have to work efficiently to make sure that you can give a value price. You have to be able to do things quickly, and you guys very rapidly, but quality too. I noticed that on when you guys did the pavers at my house.
Yeah, that's kind of what we like to focus, and that's kind of our selling point too, is those attention to details, with necessarily setting us back much. It can,
right,
and that's what we've seen a lot of crews will do, is they'll focus more on the time that they spend on the job and what causes them to leave those little pieces behind, because they're not thinking about it. They don't think. They just see, we're laying the pavers, we're reaching the end. That's the end. Cut it off, and that's it. We're done. Let's go.
Right.
There's that time period where you're transitioning into what we do, where we have to stop and think and make that change. That it does slow you down for a little bit, but once you're in the groove of that, as you're installing, before you're cutting, you get in that groove of that mentality of how can I make this look better than what it does now, and eventually it just becomes second nature. So at first, when we get a lot of our guys, especially ones that we didn't train and that come from a different company, sometimes there is that transitional period that makes it difficult for them, and we've had some complaints where they're like, well, nobody else does it like this. And that's that's our selling point. That's what we want to do. We want people to say nobody else does it like this. That's our goal.
Right.
And so
absolutely,
that's always our biggest thing. Even when we started with new construction, we would tell the builders, there's this driveway we just did for you. Right next door, you just built another house a couple months ago and someone else did it for you. You can look at them, the two driveways, and say that ours looks better, but you don't know why until we point little details. And you're like, oh, yeah. And then you go back and see the other one. And you're like, oh, yeah, that doesn't look as good. I see that now. It sometimes it can go underappreciated, but it's still what you want to do. You still want to do the quality work. Like you said, the craftsmanship. Don't lose the craftsmanship.
That is a beautiful thing. I think that's something to keep our eye on, especially as we're growing and developing business, and we're both in a very successful time in businesses. And I feel like a lot of times, those big companies, I won't name any names, but a lot of big paver companies, I mean, they're huge. I mean, you see 20 of their trucks or over 15 of their trucks on the road. It's like, wow. But, to really train, execute, make sure every job is quality at that scale is pretty crazy. But being a small family-owned business, we're able to, be awarded the financial earn it that we need, but also that the craftsmanship and the values there for the customer. And it's something definitely I've challenged myself to make sure I keep an eye on as we, add another crew. I don't want to get too much bigger, but always don't lose the craftsmanship. I love that line that you said.
The Landscape Cafe is a production of Pure Landscaping and the Niche Podcast Network. Learn more about Bailey, Katie, and the team by visiting purelandscaping.com. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, the best place to rate or follow the show is at thelandscapecafe.com. Thank you for listening in. Stay tuned for the next part in this conversation.